Okay, so we've talked a lot about the Elite desks. Today, we have something a little different. This is a ProDesk 400. To be exact, it is the ProDesk 400 G3 Mini. And I wanted to go crack it open, see if it works. Look at some of the features that it doesn't have in comparison to the EliteDesk and also the ProDesk 600. This particular, as far as the 400, was a cheaper version. I guess more economy, maybe perhaps for the consumer market, or if an organization maybe wanted to have different tiers, maybe they would go with this with very base type of workstation versus the EliteDesk. Maybe they want to do more with it. This is metal, just like the other ones. The back, you've got some stuff that's similar and some stuff's very different. Still has the antenna. You've got your display port. This is interesting. You've got a serial port, maybe for setting and connecting to perhaps a printer, serial, some kind of setup, maybe a barcode scanner, not sure. This uses the same Flex IO. This particular one is set for VGA. You've got your USB ports, 1 gigabit LAN. This is a Realtek as opposed to the Intel that you find on most of the other ones. And this is your power. Front, very similar to the ProDesk 600 and the EliteDesk, except no USB-C. They got to bring the price down somewhere. The bottom on this unit doesn't have the sticker that kind of identifies what it is. And that's one of the things I always like to look at as far as getting the specs on the serial number, so forth. It's a little hard to see, but you can actually get the serial number. It's showing right here. This is actually showing the fact of the model. But in a photo, it may be hard to read, but you can get the info. It's also on the inside of the top case. If we take the top off, one of the things that we'll notice right away is this is a G3, but it's got a thumb screw, where with the EliteDesk, it's got that funky latch that you always have to move over. So this opens up very similar to the G2s and the G4s. If I look inside, I do have the serial number, just the basic part numbers. So that is a way to kind of confirm to see, another way of getting the serial number. Although sometimes these tops get switched out, so that's not always reliable. This unit, when it was first sold back in July 2017, I had an i3 7100T, 4 gig of memory, and a 500 gig mechanical drive. One thing that didn't, as you get focused on one maybe style or flavor of the models, the EliteDesk, I didn't realize with the ProDesk, there is only the 35 watt models. They don't have 65 watt models. So this particular one only came as 35 watt. Inside looks very similar. Again, Right here, you've got the where you would put the Flex IO. The caddy looks identical. The SATA cable, fan. Now, one interesting thing, when I open this, I go, what is this thing? What's this plastic thing? And I looked it up in the manual, service manual, and it's called a fan duct. And I'm like, wait a minute, is this something unique to the ProDesk 400? And I started going through eBay looking at other EliteDesk G3s, and they almost all of them had this. So I don't know. With the various ones, I think I have 3 now. None of them had this. So this must be one of those parts that just when people go in and they start messing with stuff and pulling out, they forget to put back in and it gets lost. This part alone, if you want, you can actually order it from HP. It's $60. You can get it. I did see it on eBay for I think like 13. I don't know. I'm curious to see about putting it maybe on my G3 that I use for my normal day-to-day computer to see if it helps any. So let's open this up a little bit and check out some of the other parts, and then we'll fire it up and see what we've got. Maybe do some benchmarks for that CPU. It is an i3, but it is a 7th gen. And let's start with take off the SATA. And I really wanted to get the ProDesk 400 just to see what are the options out there. I could say though this wasn't dramatically cheaper in terms from eBay. It was, I don't know, maybe maybe $10, $15 less. It, as with anything, it kind of depends. Do you want it? This came with the processor, no memory, did have the caddy, did have the Wi-Fi, so it did come with some nice stuff. Very clean unit, so that's a positive on it too. Let's pop this out. Does have the Wi-Fi, I believe. Let's see, this hard to see there. In the specs, it showed that this only went up to an N and that it wasn't an AC, but already had the antennas connected. This is your M.2, so it will support the 2280, and it's got that same screw-in for the 2230, and that's pretty nice. What else we've got? I upgraded this for testing with 16 gig. And then we'll get in here and we'll check out the processor and probably check to see the pace. Now again, I've never used this one, this fan duct, so I think, yeah, okay, it just pretty much just pops out there. There's your $60 piece of plastic. Great. Okay. I guess conceivably it helps to, if you've got airflow going through here from the fan, because the fan should be pumping air through the heat sink, and then instead of having this gap here, this fills in the gap, and then that goes, and then you get the air out. I don't know why, I guess in the engineering, why they just didn't move this closer. I looked at the I thought on the G4 there wasn't the same gap, that it was more, it kind of fit in under there. But anyway, so we got this to the side. Let's take out these, loosen this up and check out the CPU. Oh, wow, that popped up pretty quick there. Okay, oops. All right. Okay, got a nice clean heat sink. Use the 90% isopropyl to clean that off. And we've cleaned that. Okay, confirm it is an i3 7100T. And let's put some thermal. Okay, got some thermal paste on there. Let's go ahead and stick this back on. A lot of times with new units that I haven't even turned on, I may just go ahead and hook it up first, make sure everything's working, and then go back and you know, update the thermal paste. But just felt like let's just go for it for today. So you've got 1, 2, and 3. Lightly connect them ever so slightly so that they can at least get in the. Sometimes they don't catch the screws quite right. So all right, let's just tighten this down. Well, I guess that maybe that's all it goes in. All right. I've done so many of these that you kind of lose track on which ones go all the way in, which ones go partially. Okay, that looks good. Let's put our expensive piece of plastic back in there. Now this, when I had this out, might have been a good time to also replace the Flex IO, but I looked through my collection of stuff. I thought I had another display port, but I must have switched that around before. So I'm fine. As long as I got one display port, we're okay. So we'll put this back. And put that caddy back in. Now this one would also be a nice candidate. I have another video in which I add a second network port, and that would be, yeah, it would work with this unit too, and particularly also if you had a reason where you needed to have an Intel NIC versus the Realtek, and then that way you could use that other one, you know, for that purpose. And let's see, tighten this. Okay. Let's grab a boot drive for Windows. Put the cover back on. That's what it was. Gotta make sure that cord's down there. Okay. There we go. That fits in. I think I'm going to try to go into the BIOS first so that I can see if it needs any kind of update for the BIOS version and the other settings. Okay, we got in. Let's check a couple things just to see if everything looks okay. We've got our system info. Good, 16 gig of memory. We've got our i3 7100T, ProDesk 400 G3. Let's see. We'll go back. Let's go to BIOS setup. And I always like to update the system BIOS first. Interesting. Most recent update check. Never checked. So we'll see how old. Right now we're at version P23. And we'll give a check. Oh, well, let's see. 2.04 is our current. Let's see. Well, just a little jump. 2.49. Yeah, I think I'll go ahead and update. All right, this is going to take some time. It's going to do some reboots, etc. And then we'll come back and we'll do a couple other settings. Okay, the BIOS upgrade is finished. I guess, well, relatively newish. It's only, was it less than a year old, the new one. So let's set a couple other things. BIOS setup. Always like to go to advanced and then system options. And I like to turn on the virtualization. So we'll do both of those. That way, if we want to do any stuff with Proxmox, etc., it's already set to go. And we'll save and exit, and this should hopefully then boot us into Windows. Okay, we're in Windows, going into Task Manager. We got CPU. Looks like, I guess this particular CPU only has 2 core. So, again, we're talking about something that is on the cheaper end, more economy. You do get 4 logical processors. So if you're using in Proxmox, you'd have 4 processors you could play with. Virtualization enabled, memory. We've got the 16 gig as we're showing, Ethernet. Seems to be working fine. Got the Realtek. Let's curiosity. Let's check to see if this needs the upgrade for the TPM. I went into device security. Let's look at the security processor. And looks like it's at 2.0. And that's a pretty up-to-date version as far as the TPM. So that's good. I'm going to let any Windows updates run. And then we'll go ahead and we're going to run a Cinebench and see what kind of speed we get for that processor. Well, that i3-7100T is definitely not a speed demon. I mean, at least in comparison to what you would find, even this i3-8100T, you get 165. This is 115. I mean, obviously it's better than this guy, which was on that 260. But it is definitely a lower power CPU. I'm going to try the single core test just to also see. I expect we'll probably get something similar. Well, for the single core, it pretty much matched the i3-8100T. So just to kind of give you a sense there. Okay, some other stats. When it's off, it pulls about 1.1 watts. When you sitting pretty idle in Windows, it vacillates. It's probably around 10 watts. At full load, it pulls in around 44. And after 5 minutes on a heavy load, temperatures are around 75, 76 Celsius. And but they do come down to probably more in the high 40 range You'll see here that it's cooling down after having been run at high speed for or heavy load for 5 minutes, and that was also after doing all of the various Cinebench testing. So the question is would I, or what are my thoughts, recommendations on getting the not Elite, the ProDesk 400 G3 Mini, and it's a nice unit in terms of build quality. It does lack USB-C. It does lack an Intel networking card. My particular unit was cheaper, probably because I also had a cheaper CPU, slower CPU in it. This will take all the way up to an i7 7700T if you wanted to go that route. It looks very much and functions very much like the other, like the EliteDesk G3. But, back when this came out, yes, you would probably save yourself, I don't know, maybe a couple $100 or something if you went with the unit. But once things have gone on the eBay and the after market, there's not a huge difference price wise when you're looking at at this one. Mine I paid $25 for. That didn't come with any kind of memory or drive, but it came with the CPU and of course no power supply. That probably saved me a little bit because I didn't have to buy a CPU, as opposed to I could get a bare bones G3 EliteDesk for about the same price, but then would have to get the CPU. So if you needed something relatively inexpensive that had all the stuff, but at the same time, had similar look and form factor and maybe some of the same sort of upgradability, then the ProDesk 400 might be a way to go. You might also want to look at the ProDesk 600, but I think once you get to the 600s, the pricing with those and the 800s is pretty neck and neck. So they're pretty close there because they pretty much do the same sorts of stuff, and there's a little more similarity there.